Hey guys, J77 here doing another flashback review, and let's get right straight to it. A movie that pretty much everybody knew I was going to talk about, and that is the 1960s Psycho starring Anthony Perkins. Now, I might as well give you guys a heads up on this film. I did like this movie. I thought it was good. Just good. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was a masterpiece, and I actually think this film is overrated. And that's largely because of Alfred Hitchcock's other films that he made throughout his career. Now, Alfred Hitchcock's career goes all the way back to 1922, and needless to say, he made a lot of films that pretty much will put a lot of directors right now to shame. And unfortunately, almost half of his movies that he had made will never be seen again because of a big fire has happened and destroyed most of his films. So the films that you see pretty much that is on video cassette right now, it's not even half of the movies that he had made way back when, but will never be seen because no one made a copy of it. The negative was never saved and it was destroyed during the fire. A lot of great classic films have been destroyed in the fire back during the 1920s and 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So if you have noticed, if you look at his film list that is still available, it's nowhere near the films that he's had. With that being said, when you hear Alfred Hitchcock's name, Psycho comes to mind right away. It's automatically something that people relate to, and that's kind of interesting because there are so many movies that he had made over the years that I consider to be far more superior than Psycho ever was. Bird still scares me, and that came pretty much 3 years after the fact. The Birds scares me. I actually thought North by Northwest was a good film. I thought that The Man Who Knew Too Little was a good film. One of his all-time great classics, Vertical, that's a film that I consider to be a classic. So I actually feel that there are other films that he had made that top Psycho by a mile. There's a lot of history between Psycho, so I guess that was one of the main reasons because he did have a hard time getting this film going. There was a lot of pretty much snobby people involved with the Motion Picture Censors Board. There's so much history between this film and how he promoted this film. Pretty much probably submitted by the stamp that this is the film that everybody's going to remember him for the most, despite the fact that his filmmaking career goes pretty much past 4 decades. But if you want to be honest, this was the one that is actually people have gone through. My initial feeling why I'm not this so lovey-dovey with this movie is pretty much goes like this. I saw this film on VHS in my nearest blockbuster video in Staten Island. I went there, was looking at it on the horror session. That was my first mistake because I did not realize that this was not really a horror film per se, but more of a suspense film. And I kind of interesting that this is the only one I saw in the suspense category, and the rest of them is in the horror category. But I'll get to that in the end of this video. When I picked it up, I rented it. I wanted to see it because I'd never seen it. I heard so many stories, saw so many documentaries. I wanted to see this film. I popped it up on my VCR, shut off the lights, and watched this film. And in the first 10, 20, 25 minutes, I was immediately not interested. The film starts off with two lovers in a hotel. They're talking about their future. You already know that one of the main characters, the man here, who was pretty much married, going through a long divorce, but pretty much knew it was expensive to divorce someone over. This gave one of the main characters an idea to pretty much get the money that they need by pretty much stealing it from her employer, $40,000 to be exact, and actually, went overseas. Went to our man to say, look, I got the money, let's do this. And this pretty much sparked the film. The film also takes a very much interesting ride where her conscience is slowly starting creeping up her and her paranoia because, as you know, she was stopped by a police officer. This police officer followed her to to a car dealership, which she actually changed the car, paid in cash, and as she's driving, you can hear the conversation in the back, and pretty much not in full swing, but you can hear them talking about the situation where it was kind of weird that she paid right away and paid in cash, and they never really had that before. She didn't even try to bargain them down. So this was pretty much bringing more suspicious. As she drove off, the rain started coming down hard, and to the point where she actually drove off the road and into a different road leading to the base hotel. And from that point, between that and the base hotel, I'm saying, where is the suspense? Where is this horror? Where is this big hype film that everybody's talking about over the years? What's so special about this film? Well, my feelings started changing when Anthony Perkins came on screen, and I'm gonna tell you right now. Anthony Perkins' performance throughout this film made me very uncomfortable. His acting, and it is credit towards Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates, really did show. I always had that feeling when I saw him, even when he was interacting with the others. You just got that nerving feeling that you need to leave. There's something's not right. You need to leave, and that's what got me to stay with this film, because I was like 2 minutes away from shutting this movie off. And once Anthony Perkins came in, and that was the only reason why I stayed. I said, all right, let me see what Anthony Perkins is. I seen his other work. Let me see what he does. Maybe he'll save it for me. And he did. The moment he came in there, the moment his performance started to come, he pretty much carried me throughout the rest of this film. And I watched this film, and I'm saying, wow, this guy really is playing this part well, because right now I can't. I want to leave my own apartment. That's how very uncomfortable he was. It was something about his aura, how he moved, how he interacted, how he talked. I think one of the best scenes in this movie was when him and Bates and the woman was talking to each other, and Lauren Kane, I believe, as they staying face to face, and how she were interacting, how he was talking, and how the mother factor came into it. And throughout that whole time, it was tense, it was nerve-wracking, it was very uncomfortable, and that alone really want to save us. So I said, okay, I can see where people said this is where that build up lead to, and believe me, it built up. And I gotta tell you, straight up and down, that the most surprising part of this movie, the most surprising part of this whole scene, and I think was a big shocker back in the '60s, was Alfred Hitchcock made a bold move in killing off the main character. That was completely unheard of in movie cinema history, and he did it in such a way that I gotta say it was actually a risk, but a stroke of genius. Because once she had died, the audience, including myself, was like, "Now what? What's going on? What's happening? How did you do this?" And right there, it forced me to watch this entire film, because I was just kind of curious on how Alfred Hitchcock was going to. He dug himself in a hole, but at the same time, he dug himself right out of it, and that's what I actually respect about him. He knew how to make the twist and how to able to follow through without getting jammed, without doing a cop-out play, because he had dug himself out and he didn't know how to. He dug himself in, he didn't know how to dig himself out, and that was the one thing I actually admired about him. He knew how to tell a good story when push come to shove, and this was no different. So now this character gets killed off, and for the most of the second act, you are seeing Norman Bates trying to cover up what we thought was the mother who committed this murder. We didn't see the face, we saw the action and the scene, that infinite shower scene, but we never saw the face. So we just assumed, oh my God, the mother killed him. But why? And he comes right in, he's trying to cover it up, protect his mother. Throughout the whole sequence, you're seeing him doing all sorts of stuff, taking the car, cleaning up the hotel room, taking the body into the car, dumping it in the lake. And from that whole time, it was just, okay, how you're just looking at him trying to do all these steps, and it's like, okay, what's going to happen next? He wasn't going to end this film like this. There's no way he was going to end the film just like that. So you pretty much had the idea that something else is going to happen, and it did. The film goes into the next act where you have this detective looking for a now deceased Moran Kane, and he tracked that boyfriend down or the lover. He's saying that, look, where's the money? We know she has the money. Just tell her to give the money back. They don't care. They can press charges. And you have him, the detective, and the sister looking for this person who's already gone in this film, and they're trying to piece the puzzle of what happened between our drive from one point to the other, which the detective pretty much led to have tracked down the base hotel. And in that scene, you start to see the questioning, and every time that the detective started answering questions on Norman, pretty much all but out of himself. You can see the guiltiness coming right out of him. You can see that he kept on, hinting that he knows more than what he's letting on, especially when he said the lights hasn't been working, everything else, and he turns on the light. It was almost like guilty conscience getting the better of him. And the detective said, "You see, you just said that this thing was not messed up, but now you just showed us that it wasn't." So his guilt was pretty much coming out there, and that brought him suspicious because he wanted to speak to Norman's mother, but he wouldn't let him. Norman would not let him. He would not let him speak to his mother whatsoever. It was kind of curious of why he has something to hide. We then cut back to the phone call, and he's telling him, look, I don't suspect him to do anything wrong. I think there's something else going on, and I believe that there's something odd about this guy, Norman. I'm going to continue going through that, as that was his first mistake, and I'm going to see what I can find out. He ends up the base hotel, and he gets killed off. And I'm going to say right now, that was the most weakest death scene I've seen in the film. The most powerful death scene was the shower scene. The weakest death scene was that scene because you really didn't see much. You see him get sliced. He fell down the stairs with some speed of a 20-year-old man. The mother came and stabbed him in the heart, pretty much finishing him off. So that's the whole scenario has happened. So you're not seeing all stuff going on. You're seeing a lot of stuff hitting the fan. And the ending, although wasn't really shocking because he gave away the ending kind of quick with the two remaining stars talking to friends of the Bates family and finding out that the mother was already gone. So that pretty much gives you a hint that may happen. The ending was still shocking to me. The ending was still kind of surprising. And then we had the last act. I don't consider it a bad thing, but the explanation as to a lot of stuff really did not lead me to be influenced. I didn't really care about the explanation because it's really what can you really say? But I will say this: I'm probably the only one who saw this because I know I talked to it a lot with my Matic Expression friends. I mentioned this. There was a scene that Alfred Hitchcock did. It was very, very quick, but very, very brief. When you see the scene where he's talking to himself and explaining how, pretty much explaining how he will never be, how he will never be crime because they will never believe that his mother is doing it. Basically, the guy was crazy. The scene faded. You first seen a skull-like figure, and then it faded to them picking up the car, and it just ended like that. And it always bugged me out and said, what was that all about? But that's how the film pretty much ended. Yeah, so I can say it like this. The first 10, 15 minutes of this film, didn't care for it all. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was all that thrilling. When Norman came into the scene and when his performance started to rise, Anthony Perkins' character started to rise. That's when I started to get interesting. And then after they did something that even in 60 standards and even now standards is kind of shocking, that's when I started really getting into it because you killed the character. Okay, now I know what you're going to do. Now I have to watch this film. And for the most part, the film delivered in terms of not much of suspense, but in terms of build-up. The film did a great job of building something up. It was getting built up for something big to happen, and when it happened, it was satisfactory right off the way. The pacing was fine. I had no problem with the pacing, although I will admit that the first half wasn't much of the pacing concern, but what it was doing. I didn't care about their relationship. I just didn't. I didn't care about these two lovers meeting secretly, unless you're telling me that one of the lovers is a murderer. I didn't really much care about that, but again, that was just that kind of uninteresting side of the story. Once that story got out the way, and once we really focused on Norman, this hotel, his mother, and what will the people do? Will they ever find out what really happened? Then I started getting interested because once that money scene, once that situation where she stole the money got out of the picture, that's when things really started to pick up for me, and they really focused on why I came there, why I rented this video to begin with, and I wasn't at least upset at all with this movie. And again, the story, although it got off to a slow start for me, really picked up, and I really did enjoy myself. Again, I don't consider this as Alfred Hitchcock's best film. I just don't. But what I do think of it is it's one of Alfred Hitchcock's most iconic films, because again, this is the one that stamped his name in history. You cannot think of Alfred Hitchcock without Seeking Psycho. That's just how it is. Whether I like it or not, you think of Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho is the one thing that everybody goes in, and for many reasons. There's a whole lot of documentaries that mention this about this movie. This movie almost didn't get made. The one thing about the Hitchcock movie that came out last year is that this movie went through a lot of problems. A lot of people want to finance it. Even the census board was pretty snooty about this. One of the stories, and you can actually read in his memoir, is that, and this is actually so true about a lot of other stuff, when he submitted this film to the ratings board, they wanted him to cut a lot of scenes because of the shower scene. There was nudity in the shower scene, and they sent it back. And instead of cutting that scene, he sent it right back to the ratings board. Would you believe the same people who saw nudity didn't see the nudity, and he didn't do anything? And this is pretty much a classic case of your mind playing tricks on you, or pretty much a psychological thing where a perfect example of this is like if you ever order something in a restaurant and you say this has not enough seasoning in it, and the waiter takes it back and they return moments later with that tray, and then you taste it and and say, oh, this is much better, this is how I want it to be done. The chances are they didn't even probably do anything with that food. They probably just wait a few minutes, heat it up, and just give it right back to you. That was then, to you, in your mind, you already says, okay, they've done it, they put some seasoning on it. But in reality is, all they did was probably just wait a few minutes and just give it back to you untouched. Comedians have made fun of that situation, but there's a true scenario when it came to that. Many people see one thing, but when they come back and when they give it back that same thing untouched, they see a totally different thing. So it's a very, very, it's more psychological than anything else. They see things, but they don't see things, and they see things, and they don't see things, but then they see things again. But that's what the situation was. Psycho really had a rough going. It was not well praised by a lot of critics. Again, the critics was not jumping up and down for this film. They really was not. They really felt this film was a bit low budgety. It was not well made. The story was predictable. So this film did not have a good rating. In fact, the sequel to the movie had a much better rating than this film. It's kind of ironic that the sequel for a while had a much better rating reception than the first one. And I'm gonna tell you right now, the sequel to this movie is very, very good. I will talk about that film in a later date. It's kind of ironic how that film was just as much suspenseful as this movie, but yet it's in the horror section. So it makes me wonder about the films, the people who actually categorize these movies. But like I said, this film did do well in the box office. They did it very, very well, despite the fact there was rumors of people committing suicide when they saw this film. The film did well. Alfred Hitchcock promoted this film heavily in New York when Psycho was played. You can actually hear his voice actually promoting this film through a speaker in some of the theaters. Some of these theaters are still around. Some of them are no longer here in New York. But this is how intense he wanted this film to see. Because keep in mind, he actually went for broke for this film. He actually financed this film heavily on his own. No studio wanted to take a risk on this movie. But it not only became a hit, it became a big worldwide hit. And that's something you got to give credit where credit's due with him taking a risk, promoting it correctly, and that and the fact that the word of mouth with the shocking ending that it did really did stun a lot of people. So give him credit where credit is due on that. I really give him that much respect on how he handled that film. But to me, when I saw it, again, I'm not saying it's terrible. I thought it was good. I just didn't think it was the greatest thing I ever saw on film. I just didn't think that was his best film. I have to go back again and say I thought that The Birds was scarier. I thought that Vertigo was his best film that he made. Rear Window. There's just so many films that I thought that were better than this film. To say that this is his greatest achievement, blockbuster-wise, yes, I will give it to him. He definitely have earned that because again, he did a lot of things about this film. He went for a lot of crap, and this film still managed to do extraordinarily well, way beyond anyone's expectations. But to me, it's not in my top 5. But it is a good movie. It is a film that I recommend you watch. But I would advise you guys, don't watch this as a horror film. Watch this as a suspense film, as a film that builds up to something. Because that's where the film's main strength is. It really does a great job of building up to something, and that's something alone that you just simply cannot shy away from. This is one of those films that did a great job for. So that's pretty much my feeling on this film. It's a 3-star movie. I did enjoy watching it, and it is a film that I recommend you watch, but do not. This is something I don't normally do, but there's a reason. I want to discuss it in the next Flashback review because I want to talk about this. If you're going to watch Psycho, watch the original. Do not watch the remake. Do not watch the remake. I don't say don't watch this film too often, but there's a legitimate reason why I say in this case scenario, do not watch the remake. And I'll explain it next time on Flashback Reviews. Until then, it's Jay777 saying take care, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.